A confrontation at a Roswell grocery store turned violent when a woman was arrested. Cell phone video from a neighborhood grocery store shows a confrontation.
We begin with breaking news out of Alpharetta, Georgia, where a cell phone video of a grocery store confrontation has exploded online, amassing over 10 million views in less than 24 hours. The footage shows a 69-year-old retired postal worker, a black man named Clarence Mitchell, asking a white woman to move her cart so he could reach the checkout scanner. What started as a simple request spiraled into chaos that no one in that busy Whole Foods will ever forget. It was a humid Friday afternoon in late spring, the kind where the parking lot is packed with minivans and the air smells of cut grass and barbecue smoke drifting from nearby tailgates. Inside the store, the hum of conversation mingled with the squeak of cart wheels and the occasional cry of a toddler tired of shopping. Clarence Mitchell had just finished his weekly routine, a small basket with bananas, whole wheat bread, a rotisserie chicken, and a pint of peach ice cream for his grandson's visit the next day. He wore his old Navy cap embroidered with a Postal Service eagle, the one he'd worn for 38 years, delivering mail through rain, sleet, and the occasional neighborhood dog with a grudge. He approached the self-checkout, nodding politely to the attendant, a college kid named Malik, who waved him forward. "Go ahead, Mr. Mitch, lane 4 is open." Clarence smiled, the kind of easy smile that came from decades of greeting strangers on porches. "Appreciate you, son." But before he could lift the first banana onto the scale, a woman in Lululemon leggings and a visor pushed her overflowing cart directly in front of him. Her ponytail swung like a pendulum as she unloaded protein powders and organic kale without a glance backward. "Excuse me, ma'am," Clarence said, voice steady as a metronome. "I believe the young man here waved me through." She froze, then turned, eyes narrowing behind oversized sunglasses. "I was here first," she snapped, the words slicing through the ambient noise like a cracked whip. Clarence kept his tone even. No harm meant. Just trying to scan my few things and get home. Something in his calm seemed to flip a switch. "You people always think you can just cut in," she hissed, loud enough for the next 3 lanes to hear. A mother with a baby on her hip gasped. A teenage boy bagging groceries dropped a roll of paper towels. Phones rose like periscopes, catching the sun. Clarence blinked, the slur landing heavier than any package he'd ever carried. "Ma'am, I'm 69 years old. I've waited my turn since before you were born." "Don't you dare play the victim," she spat, stepping closer, finger jabbing the air. "You always do this. Always acting entitled." An older gentleman in a golf shirt tried to intervene. "Ma'am, let's all just." But Vanessa, her name would later surface from a rewards app notification, shoved Clarence's basket so hard the wheel caught his ankle. The ice cream tumbled out, lid popping off, peach goo spreading across the tile like a slow-motion crime scene. The store fell into a stunned silence, broken only by the beep, beep, beep of a scanner 2 lanes over. "Ma'am, I need you to step back," Malik pleaded, his voice cracking with youth and fear. She ignored him, grabbing a jar of almond butter from her cart and hurling it. It spun past Clarence's ear, shattering against the cigarette disposal outside the exit doors. Glass sparkled under the fluorescence like dangerous confetti. Someone shouted, "That's assault." Another voice called the cops. The store manager, a brisk woman named Sophia Ramirez, emerged from a floral department, phone already to her ear. "Police are en route," she announced, her voice cutting through the chaos like a foghorn. Clarence stood rooted, peach ice cream soaking into his sneakers, but his face never twisted into anger. "Ain't worth losing my peace over," he murmured, almost to himself, bending slowly to retrieve the leaking container. As sirens wailed closer, Vanessa was still ranting. "He cut." Everyone saw. An officer gently took her elbow. She jerked away, nearly toppling a tower of energy drinks. Cuffs clicked. The crowd let out a collective exhale, a few quiet claps rising like distant applause. Clarence rubbed his ankle, eyes on the mess. "Can I still pay for the chicken?" he asked Sophia. She shook her head. "On us, Mr. Mitchell. You've been through enough." He insisted on covering the ice cream. "I'll pay for what spilled. Just want to get home to my grandson." As he pushed toward the automatic doors, strangers parted like the Red Sea, murmuring apologies that weren't theirs to give. Outside, the Georgia sun beat down mercilessly, sirens fading into the distance. Clarence loaded his trunk, paused, and let the thick air fill his lungs. He didn't feel like a hero, just tired. Moments later, the video was uploading, tagged hashtag Whole Foods Meltdown, racing toward viral infamy. Back inside, witnesses gave statements. A high school girl handed her phone to an officer. She threw the jar right at his head. She said, voice trembling. Sophia described the shove, the slurs, the almond butter missile. Every angle was captured in high definition. Across town, Clarence's daughter Keisha, a middle school principal wrapping up dismissal, saw the clip on a teacher's phone in the faculty lounge. Her heart plummeted. She dialed fast. Dad, tell me that's not you in the peach ice cream. I'm fine, baby girl. Ice cream didn't make it, but I did. By nightfall, the story dominated local news. Headlines screamed, woman hurls jar at senior in racist tirade at Georgia Whole Foods. Vanessa's employer, a high-end yoga studio, issued a statement terminating her front desk position. Her face, pulled from Instagram, became the internet's villain of the week. Clarence muted his phone, but the texts kept coming. Old postal route buddies, church choir members, even the barista at his corner Starbucks. He stared at his wife's photo on the mantel, gone 7 years now, taken by cancer, and whispered, "You'd tell me to pray for her, wouldn't you, Evelyn?" Then, he turned off the TV. The next morning, Alpharetta woke to find Clarence trending. Memes slowed the jar midair, captioned Grace under pressure. A gospel remix layered his calm, ain't worth losing my peace, over swelling chords. Keisha arrived with coffee and worry. They fired her dad. It's everywhere. Clarence sipped slowly. I didn't ask for that. You didn't throw a jar at a stranger either. He chuckled, but it faded fast. Hate's loud, Keisha. Always has been. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat in her condo, blinds shut, takeout growing cold. Her mother left voicemails she couldn't bear to play. The doorbell rang, reporters. She slid to the floor, back against the door, and for the first time admitted to the empty room. I don't even know why I said it. Charges came swift: assault, disorderly conduct, hate crime enhancement. Her public defender advised silence. She nodded, numb. Weeks later, the courthouse steps baked under July sun. Clarence arrived in his Sunday suit, Keisha at his side. Cameras flashed. Mr. Mitchell, will you speak today? I'll let the judge do the talking, he said, steady. Inside, the video played again. Vanessa flinched at her own voice echoing off the marble walls. Clarence stared straight ahead, jaw tight. The prosecutor called it targeted venom. The defense pleaded public shaming, had already punished her beyond measure. Then Clarence took the stand. Your Honor, he began, voice soft but resonant, I've carried mail through storms that would drown a lesser man. I've buried friends who deserved better than this world gave them. That day wasn't about ice cream. It was about what we let live in us when we think nobody's looking. I don't carry hate for her. I carry hope she'll see what I saw in her eyes. Scared, angry, lost. Maybe this wakes her up. The courtroom held its breath. Even the bailiff's eyes glistened. Vanessa stood next, hands trembling. I'm sorry, she said, voice cracking. Not for the cameras. For him. For every person I made feel small. I thought anger made me strong. It only made me blind. The judge's gavel fell. $5,000 fine, 1 year probation, mandatory bias training, 250 hours at the Alpharetta Senior Center. Clarence exhaled. Justice, not vengeance. Outside, a reporter thrust a mic. Do you forgive her? Clarence paused on the steps. Forgiveness ain't a soundbite. It's a road. She just took the first step. 2 months later, the senior center smelled of oatmeal cookies and lemon polish. Vanessa signed the volunteer log, head low, folding bingo cards with mechanical precision. Whispers followed her like shadows. Then one Tuesday, Clarence walked in to lead the veterans' coffee hour. Their eyes met across the rec room. She froze mid-fold. He gave a small nod and kept walking. As the weeks blurred, they orbited the same space, polite hellos, shared silence over puzzle tables. One rainy afternoon, she found him on the porch fixing a resident's walker with a pocket tool. Mr. Mitchell, she said, voice barely above the drizzle, I've practiced this 100 times in my head. I'm sorry. For the jar. For the words. For thinking my bad day gave me the right to ruin yours. Clarence tightened a screw. Rain tapping the tin roof. I hear you. That's more than I deserve. He looked up then, eyes kind but unflinching. Deserve's got nothing to do with it. Keep showing up. That's how you earn the rest. She nodded, tears mixing with rain. I will. Winter eased into spring. Vanessa stayed past her hours, organizing drives for incontinence supplies, laughing when Mrs. Goldstein taught her to cheat at dominoes. Clarence watched from the sidelines, a quiet pride settling in his chest. One warm May evening, the center hosted a volunteer potluck. The director toasted them both by name. Applause rose, genuine and warm. Vanessa's eyes found Clarence's across the room. He lifted his sweet tea in salute. Later, walking to their cars under a peach sunset, she said, I used to think sorry fixed everything. Now I know it just opens the door. Clarence smiled. And walking through it, that's the part that counts. A local station ran their story months later. Two lives tangled by one ugly minute, now woven into something stronger. Viewers wrote letters. Kids in detention centers watched the clip in civics class. Clarence kept one note on his fridge. You showed me calm can be louder than chaos. Vanessa still volunteers every Monday. Clarence drops by on Wednesdays. They don't talk every time, but when they do, it's easy, like two people who survived the same storm and learned the sky could clear. As Clarence told a reporter on his way out of the center one afternoon, we all stand in somebody's checkout line eventually. Question is whether we block the way or make room. But this story didn't end with the potluck or the local news segment. It grew roots deep and unexpected, changing not just Clarence and Vanessa, but the entire community around them. Let's step back to the days immediately following the incident. While the video spread like wildfire, Clarence returned to his routine as best he could. His mailbox, usually filled with bills and flyers, now overflowed with letters. Some were from strangers thanking him for his composure. Others were from parents who'd shown the clip to their children as a lesson in grace. One envelope, written in shaky cursive, came from a 92-year-old woman in a nursing home 3 states away. You reminded me of my husband, she wrote. He carried the same quiet strength through harder times than you can imagine. Thank you for carrying it still. Clarence read each letter aloud to Keisha over Sunday dinner, his voice catching on the ones from fellow veterans. They think I'm some kind of hero, he said, folding the nursing home letter carefully. I just didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose my cool. Keisha buttered a roll, eyes soft. Dad, you didn't just keep your cool. You kept your humanity. That's rarer than you think. Across town, Vanessa's descent was swift and brutal. Her yoga studio termination was only the beginning. Her landlord, citing community standards, gave her 30 days to vacate. Her book club disbanded after members cited discomfort. Even her dry cleaner started leaving her clothes in a separate bin labeled special handling. She stopped answering her phone, stopped checking her email. The world had shrunk to the 4 walls of her condo, and the endless loop of the video playing in her mind. One night, unable to sleep, she opened her laptop and typed her own name into Google. The results were a nightmare. News articles, Reddit threads, TikTok stitches, all dissecting her worst moment. She clicked on a forum titled, Is Redemption Possible for Whole Foods Karen? The top comment, with thousands of upvotes, read, People like her don't change. They just learn to hide better. Vanessa closed the laptop and cried until dawn. But change, like forgiveness, rarely announces itself with trumpets. It starts small, almost invisible. For Vanessa, it began with a knock on her door 3 days after the eviction notice. She expected another reporter. Instead, it was Mrs. Patel from downstairs, holding a Tupperware of chicken biryani. I saw the news, Mrs. Patel said simply. My husband lost his job last year after a mistake at work. The shame nearly killed him. Eat something. You look thin. Vanessa took the container with shaking hands. Why are you being kind to me? Mrs. Patel shrugged. Because someone was kind to my husband when he didn't deserve it. Pay it forward when you can. The biryani was the first real meal Vanessa ate in days. Meanwhile, Clarence's quiet fame grew in unexpected ways. The local high school invited him to speak at an assembly on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. He almost declined, but Keisha convinced him. They need to hear from someone who lived it, Dad, not just read about it. On the day of the assembly, Clarence stood before 500 teenagers in the gymnasium. He didn't prepare a speech. He just told them about his route in the 1970s, delivering mail to houses with whites-only signs still in the windows. About the time a dog bit him and the owner laughed. About the white widow who baked him peach cobbler every Christmas for 30 years. I'm not telling you these stories to make you feel guilty, he said. I'm telling you so you know the world didn't used to be kind to people who looked like me. And some days it still isn't. But every time you choose kindness anyway, you make it a little kinder for the next person. The gym was silent. Then a sophomore in the front row stood and started clapping. Within seconds, the entire student body was on their feet. Clarence waved them down, embarrassed, but Keisha caught the moment on her phone. The clip went viral again, this time with the caption, "This is what real leadership looks like." Back at the senior center, Vanessa's transformation was slower, more painful. Her first week, she folded towels in the laundry room, avoiding eye contact. The residents knew who she was, everyone did, but most pretended not to. Except for Mr. Rosenberg, a Holocaust survivor, with a number tattooed on his forearm. He cornered her one afternoon while she refilled coffee urns. "You're the jar lady," he said bluntly. Vanessa's stomach dropped. "Yes, sir." Mr. Rosenberg studied her for a long moment. "My wife and I hid in a cellar for 2 years. We learned hate doesn't care about your reasons. It just wants a target. You gave it one." "I know," Vanessa whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry is a start," he said. "But actions are the finish. You keep showing up here, you help Mrs. Jenkins with her crossword every Tuesday. You listen when Mr. Alvarez talks about his grandson in prison. That's how you finish." Vanessa nodded, tears falling into the coffee grounds. The turning point came on a Tuesday in October. Vanessa arrived early to set up for bingo. She found Mrs. Jenkins, an 87-year-old with dementia, crying in the hallway because she couldn't find a room. "It's okay, Miss Ruth," Vanessa said, kneeling beside her. "Let's walk together. Tell me about your grandson." Mrs. Jenkins clutched Vanessa's hand like a lifeline. "He's in the army. Afghanistan. I write him letters, but I forget what I said." They walked slowly down the hall, Vanessa listening to stories of deployments and homecomings. When they reached Mrs. Jenkins' room, the old woman hugged her fiercely. "You're a good girl," she said. "Don't let anyone tell you different." Vanessa cried in the supply closet for 20 minutes. Clarence witnessed the whole thing from a vending machine. He didn't say anything, but the next day, he left a small tin of peach cobbler on the volunteer desk with a note for the bingo helper. CM. The cobbler became a weekly tradition. As winter approached, the senior center planned its annual holiday party. Vanessa, now officially off probation but still volunteering, took charge of decorations. She spent hours stringing lights, convinced the residents deserved something beautiful after the year they'd had. Clarence helped hang the star on the tree. Their hands brushed, reaching for the same ornament. Neither flinched. "You know," he said quietly, "my Evelyn used to say the holidays are when people's true colors show. Either they shine brighter or they dim completely." Vanessa smiled faintly. "I'm trying to shine." "You are," he said. And for the first time, she believed it. The party was a triumph. Residents danced to Motown. Children from a local elementary school sang carols. And Mr. Rosenberg told the story of the first Hanukkah after liberation, his voice cracking with memory. Vanessa served punch, her cheeks flushed with something that might have been joy. Later, under the twinkling lights, Clarence found her by the dessert table. "Dance with an old man?" he asked, holding out his hand. Vanessa hesitated, then took it. They swayed to Ain't No Mountain High Enough, two people who'd started as adversaries, now moving in tentative harmony. "You know," Clarence said, "I never thank you." "For what?" Vanessa asked, genuinely confused. "For giving me a chance to practice what I preach. Forgiveness isn't just for the person who hurt you. It's for the person carrying the hurt." Vanessa's eyes filled. "I don't deserve." "Deserves got nothing to do with it," he repeated. The same words from the rainy porch, now carrying the weight of months. Grace neither. The new year brought new challenges. Vanessa's mother, who'd barely spoken to her since the incident, was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. The woman who'd once taught Vanessa to bake snickerdoodles now couldn't remember her own daughter's name. Vanessa moved her mother into her condo, quitting her new part-time job at a bookstore to care for her full-time. The senior center became her lifeline. She brought her mother to crafts hour, where Mrs. Mitchell, no relation to Clarence, taught them both to knit scarves for the homeless shelter. Clarence noticed the exhaustion in Vanessa's eyes. One Thursday, he showed up at her door with a casserole and a proposition. "My church is starting a caregiver support group," he said. "Meets Tuesdays. You should come." Vanessa laughed bitterly. "They'll take one look at me, and they'll see a daughter taking care of her mama," Clarence cut in. "That's all." She went. The group was small, 6 people, mostly women, sharing stories of sleepless nights and forgotten names. When Vanessa introduced herself, she braced for judgment. Instead, a woman named Gloria reached across the circle and squeezed her hand. "My son's in prison for armed robbery," Gloria said. "We all carry something. You're not alone." Vanessa cried through the entire meeting. Spring brought renewal in unexpected forms. The high school that had hosted Clarence's assembly started a Grace Under Pressure scholarship in his name, funded by donations from viewers of the viral forgiveness video. The first recipient was Malik, the college kid from Whole Foods, who planned to study social work. Clarence attended the ceremony, beaming as Malik accepted the award. Afterward, the teenager hugged him fiercely. "You changed my life, Mr. Mitch. I want to help kids who feel invisible." Clarence patted his back. "You already are, son." Vanessa's mother had good days and bad. On the good days, they baked together, flour dusting their aprons as they rolled out pie crusts. On the bad days, Vanessa sat by her bed reading aloud from Evelyn Waugh novels, her mother's favorites. One evening, as Vanessa helped her mother into pajamas, the older woman looked at her with sudden clarity. "You're a good daughter," she said. "I'm proud of you." Vanessa froze. "Mom, do you know who I am?" Her mother smiled. "You're the girl who brings me peach cobbler on Thursdays." That's enough. Summer arrived with heat waves and new beginnings. Vanessa's probation officer signed off on her final hours, but she kept volunteering. She started a program teaching seniors basic smartphone skills, helping them video chat with grandchildren overseas. Mr. Rosenberg became her star pupil, mastering FaceTime just in time for his great-granddaughter's bat mitzvah. Clarence's health began to falter. The ankle he'd injured in the incident never fully healed, and arthritis crept into his hands. Keisha worried, but Clarence waved her off. "I've got miles left in these legs," he insisted, "just maybe at a slower pace." He and Vanessa developed a routine. Every Wednesday, they met at the center to play dominoes with Mr. Alvarez and Mrs. Goldstein. They bickered over scores, laughed at old jokes, and never once mentioned the grocery store. One August afternoon, as thunder rumbled in the distance, Vanessa found Clarence on the porch staring at the sky. "Storm's coming," he said. "Feels like it," Vanessa agreed. They sat in companionable silence until the first fat raindrops fell. "You ever think about that day?" she asked finally. Clarence considered. "Every day, but not the way you think. I think about the moment I chose not to yell back. That was the real victory." Vanessa nodded. "I think about the moment I chose to throw the jar. That was the real defeat. But getting up every day since? That's been the fight." Clarence smiled. "And you're winning." Fall brought the 1-year anniversary of the incident. The local news wanted to do a follow-up. Clarence and Vanessa agreed, but only if they could film at the senior center, surrounded by the people who'd become their family. The segment aired on a Sunday night. It showed Clarence teaching Malik to tie a tie for his first social work conference. Vanessa helping Mrs. Jenkins video call her grandson in Afghanistan. Mr. Rosenberg showing off his new knitting skills. The residents shared stories of small kindnesses, how Vanessa organized a birthday party for a woman who'd had no visitors in years, how Clarence fixed the center's broken piano so the children's choir could practice. The reporter asked Clarence what he'd learned over the past year. He thought for a long moment. That forgiveness isn't a moment. It's 1,000 moments. Every time you choose kindness over being right. Every time you see someone's humanity, even when they've forgotten their own. Vanessa added, and redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about building a future that makes the past ashamed to show its face. The segment ended with footage of a holiday party, Clarence and Vanessa dancing under the lights, laughing as Mr. Alvarez photobombed their shot. Viewer response was overwhelming. The scholarship fund doubled. The schools across the state requested copies of the segment for civics classes. A publisher approached Clarence and Vanessa about co-authoring a children's book called The Checkout Line Promise, about choosing kindness in everyday moments. They accepted, but only if all proceeds went to the senior center. Winter returned, bringing Clarence's 70th birthday. The center threw a surprise party complete with peach cobbler cake and a banner reading Grace Under Pressure, 70 years strong. Keisha gave a tearful toast about her father's quiet strength. Malik presented him with a custom dominoes set engraved with the words, "Ain't worth losing my peace." Vanessa's gift was a photo album. The first page held a still from the viral video. Clarence standing calm amid chaos. The last page showed them at the holiday party, mid-dance, faces alight with joy. Between were photos of their year together. Dominoes games, knitting circles, the caregiver support group, Mrs. Jenkins' birthday party. On the inside cover, Vanessa had written, "To the man who taught me that forgiveness is a verb. Thank you for every day you chose it." Clarence turned the pages slowly, eyes misty. When he reached the end, he closed the album and looked at Vanessa. "You know," he said, "I used to think that day in Whole Foods was the worst thing that ever happened to me." Vanessa's breath caught. "But now," Clarence continued, "I think it was the best thing. Because it led me here. To this table. To these people. To you." The room erupted in applause. Vanessa hugged him fiercely. No longer the woman who'd thrown a jar, no longer defined by her worst moment. Spring arrived again, cyclical as forgiveness itself. Clarence's arthritis worsened, forcing him to use a cane. Vanessa, now certified as a caregiver, moved into the guest room to help Keisha. They developed a rhythm. Morning coffee on the porch, afternoon walks to the mailbox, evening dominoes with Mr. Alvarez via video chat after he moved to Florida. One May morning, as dogwoods bloomed pink against the sky, Clarence and Vanessa sat on the porch watching Keisha's students plant a kindness garden at the elementary school across the street. "Remember when we thought this story would destroy us?" Vanessa asked. Clarence chuckled. "Destroy us? Child, it rebuilt us." Keisha joined them, wiping dirt from her hands. "The kids want to name the garden after you, Dad. The Clarence Mitchell Grace Garden." Clarence waved her off. "Name it after all of us. Grace ain't a solo act." That summer, the children's book launched. Clarence and Vanessa did readings at libraries, schools, even the juvenile detention center where Malik now worked. Children asked earnest questions. What if someone's mean to me? How do I say sorry when I mess up bad? Clarence always gave the same answer. You start by showing up. Every day. With your whole heart. Vanessa added, and you remember that everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about. Even the person who hurts you. Years passed. Clarence's health declined slowly, gracefully. Vanessa cared for him as she'd cared for her mother, who passed peacefully in her sleep the winter Clarence turned 75. Keisha married Malik, the young attendant from Whole Foods, in a ceremony at the senior center. Mr. Rosenberg walked Vanessa down the aisle as father of the bride, when she married a quiet accountant who joined the caregiver support group. Clarence lived to see his great-grandchildren, teaching them dominoes on the same porch where he and Vanessa had shared so many sunsets. On his 80th birthday, the town threw a parade. The high school band played Ain't No Mountain High Enough. The Kindness Garden had grown into a community park with a plaque reading, planted in honor of those who choose grace over grievance. Clarence's final public appearance was at the park's dedication. Frail but clear-eyed, he spoke to a crowd of hundreds. I won't be here much longer, he said, voice steady despite the oxygen tank at his side. But this park will. These flowers will. The stories you tell your children about choosing kindness when it's hardest. That's what lives on. He looked at Vanessa in the front row, now gray-haired herself, holding Keisha's youngest daughter on her lap. That day, in Whole Foods, Clarence continued, I thought I was just buying groceries. Turns out I was planting seeds. Seeds of forgiveness. Seeds of change. Seeds that grew into this. He gestured at the park, the people, the love that filled the air like pollen. And the harvest? Clarence smiled. The same easy smile from 38 years of mail routes. The harvest is all of you. Clarence passed 3 months later, peacefully in his sleep, Vanessa holding one hand, Keisha the other. His funeral filled the church to overflowing. The governor spoke. The high school choir sang. Mr. Rosenberg, now 98, placed a domino on the casket, the double six, Clarence's favorite. Vanessa gave the eulogy. Clarence Mitchell taught me that forgiveness isn't weakness, she said, voice strong despite her tears. It's the strongest thing a person can do. He forgave me before I deserved it, and in doing so, he taught me how to forgive myself. She looked out at the sea of faces, residents from the senior center, students who'd received Grace scholarships, children who'd grown up reading their book. But more than that, Vanessa continued, he taught us that redemption isn't a destination. It's a daily choice. To show up. To choose kindness. To plant seeds even when you're not sure what will grow. She placed a small tin of peach cobbler on the casket. This one's for the road, old friend. In the years that followed, Vanessa carried on Clarence's work. She expanded the scholarship program nationwide. She wrote a memoir titled From Jar to Jubilee, A Journey Through Grace. She mentored young people who'd made terrible mistakes, showing them the same patience Clarence had shown her. The Kindness Garden became a national model. Cities across the country planted their own, each with a plaque telling the story of the postal worker and the yoga instructor who turned a moment of hate into a lifetime of love. And every spring, when the dogwoods bloomed, Vanessa returned to the original garden. She'd sit on the bench dedicated to Clarence and Evelyn, watching children play where hurt had once lived. One such morning, a little girl with braids and a gap-toothed smile approached her. Are you the lady from the story? The child asked. Vanessa smiled. Which story? The one about the man who didn't yell back. Vanessa's eyes filled. Yes, sweetheart. I am. The girl held out a dandelion. My teacher says dandelions are wishes. I wish everyone could be as kind as your friend. Vanessa took the weed, tears falling freely now. He liked that wish very much. She pressed the dandelion between the pages of the children's book she always carried, right at the part where Clarence says, we all stand in somebody's checkout line eventually. Question is whether we block the way or make room. Years became decades. The senior center added a wing named after Clarence. The scholarship fund endowed a university chair in conflict resolution. Vanessa, now in her 80s herself, still volunteered every Monday, teaching smartphone classes to residents who reminded her of Mr. Rosenberg. On the 50th anniversary of the incident, a documentary premiered at the Atlanta Film Festival. It opened with the original viral footage, then cut to present-day interviews. Keisha, now a grandmother, Malik, a professor, Mr. Alvarez, calling in from Florida. The final scene showed Vanessa, white-haired but radiant, placing flowers at Clarence's grave. The narrator asked her one question. Do you think people can really change? Vanessa looked directly into the camera, the same camera that had once captured her worst moment. Yes, she said simply. But only if they're willing to do the hardest thing of all, keep showing up. Day after day, choice after choice, until the person they become makes the person they were ashamed to recognize. The screen faded to black, then white text appeared. In memory of Clarence Mitchell, and all those who choose grace. Plant a seed today. The harvest is tomorrow. If this story moved you, share it. Talk about it. Live it. Hit subscribe for more reminders that even in our messiest moments, humanity still has a heartbeat. And remember, we all end up in someone's checkout line sooner or later. What matters is what we do next.